Either work at Holbrook or have worked or live or whatever, when I'll introduce later. And these are family and friends that we'll introduce later. So I want to thank you for the cards, the flowers, the hugs, the care, offers to help, including those who helped me with this event today, but I'm not going to name everybody. Thank you for donations to Mostly Months in John's name. We have not decided on a charity. I mentioned a charity, but since he loved dogs, I chose that. And at this point, I think it's right at $1,000, and I think he would be happy with that. I know a lot of you on this side, especially, but some on this side, have lost a spouse, and many of you had a much longer ordeal than I did. And I want you to know that when I see you, I know that. It comforts me and it inspires me. It makes me feel guilty because I didn't have to go that far. So this is a party in his honor. I'm going to tell you a little bit about John and me, the last 48 years. But first, hold on a minute. Run a page, hold on. It's only 20 pages, I promise. Oh, okay, never mind. All right. Before I always said I did not imagine losing a spouse because I don't think you can imagine until it happens. And then everybody's different. So you will not see me cry because I have no tears. I don't know why, but I haven't been able to cry in decades. I'm serious. For decades, I cannot cry. I used to cry at movies. I could cry at a funeral of somebody I didn't know, anything. But now I can't do it. So you don't have to worry about me crying unless something goes wrong. So I'm going to give you a synopsis of the last 5 months, mainly for those of you that do not know. And then I'm going to tell you about John and me for the last 48 years, but it's not going to last 48 minutes. So this is in his honor, and you'll have the opportunity to tell a favorite story about John, or hopefully something funny he did. I'm hoping that's what you'll be thinking about and be able to say something. So starting in 2020, we moved from, I'll back up a little bit, we moved from Virginia in 2011 to near Wilmington, North Carolina. And then in 2020, July, we moved here. And we were moving, and we had planned to drive halfway to Lisa's house in Newberry, South Carolina. And we didn't get packed up enough or whatever. So at 10 o'clock at night, we were going, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was going to call you and say we're going to be there too. We're going to go halfway. So I sent John next door to tell the people something about the trash or something. And when he came back, there was a little light, one of those lights, and he fell over. And I was getting in my car because I thought he was getting in his car and he was going to pull out. And so I said, "Did you fall?" And he said, "Yes." And I came back and we had roof mates. I ran and said, "Come quick, John fell, bring the washcloth." And so they came out and they said, "You're not going anywhere tonight." So we spent the night. So we had to drive like that out of you know what. Sorry, girls. To get here in time to get Lola in the thing. By the way, I had not planned to bring Lola, But she was groomed yesterday, and she said, "This is about my daddy, and you got me looking like I don't know what." And I don't care if you're with me or my godfather's with me, but I got to be with one of you. Actually, she did say, he does take better care of me. Anyway, so he had a dozen falls starting that day, and probably at least another dozen, but not too many after that, but a few now and then. But another maybe a dozen between March of last year and August. Not counting the two fellows there after August 15 when I visited him over there. Because I didn't know Mama helped me get back and forth. He was a pretty good guy. And after a few PT sessions, Leanne said, our PT woman here said, it is not his strength, it's his cognitive. So it took a lot to talk to him about moving. And he didn't know I was not moving him. He didn't know I was moving him next door. I was told not to tell him. We did the same thing to his mother, don't tell him. So we just also, thank God he's doing that. And we rolled him over there. And then, or shortly after that, he says to me, when I get out of here, we are done. And I said, well, can we be done now? And he never mentioned that. So, a week later, after we moved over there, on the 15th, on the 22nd, we both tested positive. So he went to the hospital, and well, he actually sent him to the hospital on Tuesday, came back, I went over there for Wednesday, Thursday, anyway, Thursday they sent him to the hospital to stay. And so I really don't know how sick he was because I wasn't there with him. I did see on the bill oxygen. I said, I don't think he had oxygen. They said, well, we put everybody on oxygen for that. So I don't know. But I was here and I didn't have any signs. So then I couldn't come back here, so I had to quickly find him a nursing home. And unfortunately, the one I found was not very good. Hopefully I'll never have to go to a nursing home. And over the time, he had some bad days and he had some better days. And his mind and health worsened. And he was bedridden for most of that time. And so on January 11, which was a Thursday, they started giving him some morphine. And I thought he would probably go next Monday or Tuesday. So Saturday morning, when I'm on my way over there on my birthday to spend the day with him, he died while I was on the way over. So I know some people will ask, but no, I wasn't with him. I just don't know that I wasn't. So before we go on, I'm going to ask Tamara, my niece, if she will pray a prayer. This is the only religious part, but she's going to pray a prayer that Carl McAfee wrote, and I'll tell you about Carl McAfee later. He was a good friend of John's, and I just really liked this prayer, and I think it said something that we all could use. She has to pray.
John's friend Carl McAfee wrote this prayer. We pray that we can be so strong in our faith that nothing can disturb our peace of mind. Help us to make all of our friends to feel something good about themselves. Forgive us when we linger and dwell on our mistakes of the past. Help us to focus and press forward with a stronger and a more secure belief in Jesus Christ. Maybe someday each of us may take time to look back on our lives and will surely cause us to remember that the really great moments were when we gave help and did something for someone else.
Amen. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about 48 years we had, and then we're going to toast, and I want everybody that wants to say something, and hopefully something funny. You can say whatever you want. I don't even have to worry about that. Who's Diana? Who's Diana? Right here. Oh, is it Diana or Diane? Diane. Diane? Diane. Oh, that's what I put, Diana. Yeah. Yeah, she's the only one I believe. And she's okay with it, so I'm okay with it. When I moved to DC from Atlanta, I had lived here 68 to 72, and when I moved here, moved to DC, I didn't know anything about politics. I didn't care about politics, but it's kind of hard not to do it if you live in the DC area, even back then. So after a while, my roommate joined one young political party, and since we were looking for husbands, I just joined the other. And so in 1975, I went to a political brunch for young people, and most of the guys had on 2- and 3-piece suits. John had on cutoffs. He had been to a softball game and it got rained down. I had a new bicycle, so I thought, who here looks like they could put together a bicycle? So I took him home with him, and he put the bicycle together, and then I took him, we went to the grocery store, I don't know who paid, but when I was bought groceries, and then I cooked him dinner. Tori, why don't you come sit down? Please. You gotta get a drink of water anyway, or some sweet tea. Anyway, so I dated him. He was a private eye at the time, so he'd say, "Do you want to go to a movie and have dinner and be home at 10 o'clock?" And I said, "Sure." That was a pretty good deal. Usually it was fast food, but anyway, it was dinner and a movie. And so I thought, this guy makes a really good friend. I like him. And I think it was my roommate said, "Talula, you have enough friends." And so I said, okay. So I think it's best to be friends first, and then brothers. And in his ring, it had, see if I can remember this, one of my friend's grandfather, one of had in his rings, had the date, but it also had friends, sweethearts, lovers. So, anyway, after about 3 years, I said, "Are you going to marry me or not?" Because I've never asked anybody before. And I please know that for you too, because I know I'll hear about it if I put that through. Anyway, so he tried to join the Navy. And I thought they probably wouldn't take him because he had polio, but he said it was because of his eyesight. He used to wear glasses that were like Coca-Cola glasses. And before we met, he worked for newspapers, sold real estate, ran a couple of political campaigns, losing ones, and even drove an ambulance and a hearse, and worked between jobs one time with the travel agency. And he and his friend, Larry Flagg, stopped an ambulance in D.C. up by one of the monuments. They just stopped the ambulance and delivered a baby. And that baby was named John Lawrence. And at the time we married on December 1678, that's when he was a private eye. And while we were dating, I was in Florida visiting my parents, and he calls me up, and it's like Christmas time. "I broke my elbow." I said, "Well, how did you do that?" "Well, I got out of the car to see a street sign, and I felt," this was good, "and I fell over construction." And I said, "How can I tell my friends that you fell over construction in your private eye?" And he said, "I'm hurt, you don't even care." I cared. Poor guy. They gave him a childproof bottle. I don't know if he, with the pain pills, I don't know if he stomped his foot or a hammer, but he had to break it open. And so over the years, he did investigating for several law firms. He was a paralegal, professional photographer, authored 2 books, which are in the library upstairs. And he worked in Virginia State Troopers magazine. He worked with Paul McAfee, that you just heard that, to get the 4 Marine hostages from Iran in 1979. They only sent 3 visas, so the mother of the Marine, the stepfather, and Carl went, and John stayed in Paris and dealt with the press from all over the world. He protected Elizabeth Taylor and her jewels, and even worked for a short time, as I said, with me when I was a manager of travel agency. Luckily, he was there when we booked a large group of students from the Star of Iran was in D.C. He took the payment of some $30,000 cash to the bank. It was just across an alley, like from here to there, but I didn't want to go for $30,000. And as it turned out, we don't know, I still don't know if they were on the Shaw side or the other side, but this was in DC, and it was a big thing, and some of them wore paper bags over their head and so forth. And so somebody had to go to court in Chicago about this, $30,000, I guess. So guess who got to go? John, because he'd been testifying in court for years, so we said, okay, we can go to Chicago. Anyway, he attended several colleges, but he never got a degree. And I'm not bragging, but I have 3 degrees, and I think he was probably 10 times smarter than me. Because he was an avid reader, and he thought he could do anything that he could read about. When he was 2, he had polio and had operations in his youth. He pretty much read, I think, cover to cover, the Encyclopedia Britannica, the Bible, the Quran, and the Book of Mormon. And I know he read the Quran when he was doing that, going over to trying to go to the Quran. Maybe the Book of Mormon when he worked for Mormons. He built shelves on 2 walls in our bedroom, wide enough to stack paperbacks. So it was a little tiny shelf, so we could stack paperbacks up. And a whole big wall and another wall. And he read all of them, and some of them he said he read more than once. And I had a student, and I said, I'd really like to send these books to the troops, but you take a box to the post office, it's $5, and you go back to them. He said, you just get them down on the first floor, I'll come get them. And that must have been 35 boxes. And my students packed them, put them in his car, took them to Andrew, and they put them on a pallet. I think they went to Afghanistan, they might have gone to Iran. But he said at the time, most of the books in that library he had put in there. And he also said the troops liked paperbacks because they could put them in their pants, and if they got wet, they could throw them away. So, one of the many things I will miss is not being able to ask him how to pronounce a word or what a word means, or to have him explain legal things or something on TV. He took photographs of computer screens from textbook of an airline computer reservation system I wrote. We went to the law firm where he was working on his birthday, and he did this for me because back then you couldn't just do screenshots, I guess. So he took the pictures off the computer, and then the pictures were in my textbook. I think he could have been a great lawyer, but he didn't do it. He defended himself and won the case so we could keep our pot-bellied pig, Petunia, in our home in Fairfax County. So he argued that himself, and the strange decision is upstairs in the private dining room. There's a lot of memorabilia about John. A lot of funny stories about that pig, or those pigs, because we raised them in South Carolina and brought them up to D.C., so we raised them on my college roommate's farm. So he defended himself, and a bunch of the lawyers said, okay, you're always telling us what to do, now we want to see what you can do. When it was all over, he said, I've won every case I've ever tried, how about you guys? That was his one case. When he was in the hospital as a little boy with polio, a nun told his Aunt Ruth, who was like a second mother to him, and they called him Bill as a child. So they told her that this child was spoiled, and her answer was, I know it, and he likes it. That was the end of that, for sure. I loved his mother, and she lived with us half a year, the last few years of her life in North Carolina, and the other half with his sister in Virginia, who couldn't come. She's in Florida, and she's got vertigo and stuff, and she couldn't come. Somebody's going to read something to her. I told him if he treated me half as good as he treated his mother, I would be happy. And I loved her, and I loved the care, and I loved how he loved her and took care of her. He was a mama's boy, and he was proud of it. When we lived in Virginia and North Carolina, he did almost all the laundry and all the grocery shopping. And one day when I went to the grocery store, within walking distance of our townhouse, they said, where's John? Where's John? I said, can I come to the grocery store? Yes, but is John sick? Is John sick? I said, no, it's not. I just came to the grocery store. But he came home with all the gossip. And he had a collection of small cars and a Marilyn Monroe museum in our home. And I'm sorry he didn't enjoy travel like I did. do, but he did enjoy cruises. So we took a lot of cruises, and some of our family and friends also cruised with us. So I'm going to read what I wrote to him. To my loving husband and best friend, I found this. And I don't have a date on it, it's after we moved here. So this wasn't to be public, but this will give you an idea why I'm missing. John, love of my life, I meant to stop at the dollar store, smiley face, yesterday to pick up a birthday card for you, but of course I forgot. Would there have been a card that could tell you how much I love you and how much you changed my life? Would there have been one that said how much you had helped me over 4 decades? Would there have been one that would show how much you helped me in my careers and in earning 2 degrees? Yeah, he deserved part of those. Would they have had one that would tell you how glad I am that you turned me into a dog lover? Would there have been one that would tell you how much Lola loves you and how much she counts on you? Would there have been one to tell you how your great sense of humor make me and so many people happy? Would there have been one to tell you how glad you got me to move to Acworth? Would there have been one that would tell you how proud I am of your photography books you have authored for the care of your mom and for quit smoking? So this had to be up in 2022. We quit in 21. So this is probably 2022. I could be there all day and not find one to tell you all the things and many other things, all of these and many other things. Thank you for marrying me. Happy 73rd birthday. It's 2 years. I hope to celebrate many more birthdays and lots of good times together. Love to live. And oh, Lola, you wrote down on the bottom, happy birthday from you. So recently I went to a celebration of life for somebody that used to live here. And a guy said, tell things even if you may not, if even that person may not want you to tell them. And John would say he was proud of every rotten thing he did. When his father had strokes over an 18-month period, John, come on down. Is it a long way from South Carolina? There's seats up here for you. Come on. This is my nephew. All right, sit there. My nephew and his mom. Recently, I told you I went to that. So when John's father was having all these strokes, he brought him home for either Christmas or Thanksgiving or something in there. And his dad had kind of rebuilt the steps. And there were 2 little steps and I think 1 big step that you had to go. And he had to pull that wheelchair up there. When he pulled that up there, he said to his dad, Daddy, you know all the things I did wrong when I was a teenager? Dad couldn't talk like that. He said, I'm not sorry for one of them. and his dad, one word he said was even. And John said, yes, we're rapidly getting even. Okay, so I'm going to try to tell you a little bit about who's here, and because I'm hoping when we go upstairs you'll mingle and meet other people. So will all the staff and former staff of Holbrook hold up your hand no matter what side you're on? Staff up high down. Okay. And all residents of Holbrook, past residents of Holbrook. Everybody out there, a past resident, hold up your hand. Hold up your hand. Listen. And of course, this may not look like Lola, but this is Lola, and I wasn't planning on bringing her like Brenda, and she just thought she looked silly and she wanted to be here. Tori. If I could cry, this would make me cry. Tori has been our night security guard since when? For 2 years. And every night, when most of you are asleep, and Lola and I down here, Friday night it was 12:30, that's when she said, I am coming whether you like it or not, that's what she told me. And so Tori's there for there. She did better on our birthdays than we did our, John and me on our own birthdays. And Lola thinks she's one of Samuel's elves. And so I'm very sad to say that last night was Tori's last night, because I feel real safe when she's in the building.
Yes.
But I'm very proud to announce, in case you don't know, tell me if I got this wrong, she's been hired by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations to be a criminal justice analyst. Okay. She also wrote me this little card. I'm just going to be part of it. Because I told you, he died on my birthday. And I tried to figure out if he did that for a sense of humor or why. I don't know why. But she said, I know today was not celebrated. Couldn't ever imagine she brought me this that night. I hope you can find the beauty in John waiting and celebrating you one last time. In a way, it's very romantic and bittersweet. You deserve to have your birthday acknowledged as the condolences. So, I only wish I'm glad he did some of those few extra days. I wish we would have done what we would have spent that day with me. All right, so on this side, most of you guys know each other. But over here, John wanted us to move close here. And I said I would move back to Atlanta for anything with all that traffic. And I started thinking about it. So we moved to be close to Talula, our chosen daughter. John thought I did the best. I think the best thing I ever did was to choose her and to choose dogs. We chose them all together except for the first one that I gave him. And her husband, Vaso, we'll hear from in a minute. I like to call him Vasily. It took me forever to learn how to say Vasily, and then everybody knows it's Vaso. And they're precious daughters. Nutsa, Winston, Kata, hold up your hand. And they're Georgian friends. Well, the Georgian friends, hold up your hands. And they were more than thought they were. That's the other Georgia on the other side. And I have to tell you, if you ever meet a Georgian, you'll be right, because you'll have the biggest family you could ever imagine. Because these all treat me like family. And thank God for Don, because I was able to go spend Christmas Eve and be with them Christmas morning, go to the Christmas Eve party and New Year's Eve party, spend the night with you guys with Sandy Springs. And so it's been a blessing. She also chose well. And besides having two beautiful girls, she has a beautiful little, handsome little boy that is Kobe, that's 2 years old at home. And next to her is Kobe's godmother, Olesa, who lives in D.C., but it's from Dover. These two sat together the first day of class in ESL, right? At where I taught, Northern Virginia Community College. And because all those countries over there speak Russian as their second language, even though they don't necessarily like the Russians, they became close friends. And then she became a friend of John and mine, like a second chosen daughter. And then niece Tamara and grandniece Parrish. And Tamara was always there, just a phone call. And came and visited me back in December or January. And then I went and visited her in the south part of Georgia because I have this wonderful goddaughter. Natalie and Richard. Some of y'all know her as the Gadget Gal. They have become really, really good friends of John's and mine. When he was well, when he was sick, after afterwards, anything I need, I just call. So also is going to be the Toastmaster. When I went to Tbilisi for the Georgian wedding, and when John and I went for Nutz's Christmas, they always, when they have parties here, they always do toast. So we're going to just do toast with water or sweet tea. Because John would drink sweet tea. So I'm going to turn it over to Vaso. You can tell them how this works.
Hi everybody. Well, it's usually a different setup. It's usually the wine, but Talula decided to the way John he liked, and he liked the water and iced tea.
John called sweet tea the wine of the South.
I guess we're just all gonna just say one toast to celebrate John's life. For me, it's very personal. I knew John almost for 25 years. When I met, I was taller, I had hair. Was not married, but John played a very big role in the creation of our family. Tiona was living in, she was studying at in Virginia, and I was down here in Georgia. And we were keeping our long distance relationship. And John always was eager to help Tiona to drive her to the airport, to drop her, to pick her up. And well, it's worked out. Now we have our family, we have 3 kids. John did not like to travel too much, even though his wife was running a very successful travel agency. So last international trip he took, I think if I am not wrong, was to fly to our home country, Georgia, which is not the easiest way to get. You know, it was like a flight from DC to Istanbul, and then 5 hours to fly from Istanbul to country of Georgia, where we were staying to baptism of my daughter. And it was really hot, and we were all staying in mountains just to have a little bit better of air and a cooler temperature, but there was no AC. And for people from this country to stay in a foreign country, well, it's kind of challenge. And one day I was walking back to our house, we were renting the house, and I see John is sitting on a porch, and I thought he was dead. And I ran to him and said, John, I said, don't worry, it's just a little bit too hot for me. And I said, John, thank you very much for putting such an effort for coming that far. And he said, do you think I'm gonna miss very important thing for Luza, or to be attend her baptism? So that's what type of person he was. That he never spoke too much, but he was always for us and for everyone who he loved. So let's close to John through his life. Yeah, I think Nutsa wants to say a couple words. Our oldest daughter.
Stand up
Stand up, stand up.
top right.
Hi everyone. I'm John's granddaughter, and I just want to say a few words. I'm very thankful for.
It's okay, don't cry.
I'm very thankful to be a part of John's life, and I'm very thankful to be a part of his. And I just want to say that John was a very caring person and a very loving person, and that I miss him very much.
Okay, now,
And
so if you raise your hand, Vaso will call.
okay. Okay.
I'm very good at this. Hi, everybody. I'm Talula. So,
I met John about 24 years ago, and he used to joke, he used to say, one day I just followed Talula home. So he had an amazing sense of humor, and I think you can say a lot about the person once you hear their jokes. He was super kind, and like my husband said, I was in West Virginia, and I would call on Friday or maybe Thursday, and he'd be like, what time do I need to pick you up tomorrow? He knew why I was calling. And then he would come to West Virginia. He would drive almost 2 hours, pick me up, take me to the airport in Dallas, and then do the same thing that same Sunday. He would pick me up at the airport, drive 2 hours, and drop me off in West Virginia. So, I don't know what else. He was super proud. He was super proud because he taught me how to make mashed potatoes. With no lumps. Even though we, I think, clogged up Talula's drain one day. We did
We had company, they put the peelers in there.
down the drain, so we messed up the drain, but the mashed potatoes turned out super good. He also taught me how to drive. He actually let me drive his very favorite green convertible, even though I bumped it a few times. Yeah, so I don't know. It was a little hard to see him past few months because he was a little different than what he used to be before. But again, definitely very thankful for following Talula home one day and having him part of our lives.
Finish introducing, this is my godson.
That's my beloved goddaughter. My name's Ben Cockerill. I've known John pretty much my entire life since I was 2. I think that's when y'all got married.
Since you were born, probably. But when we got married, you said you first were.
Okay, my memory's a little hazy back then. Just a few things about John. In some of my fondest memories growing up, I grew up in primarily Greenville, South Carolina, and would make trips up to Virginia and stay with Talula and John. But one thing that John, of course, was a man of many interests and many hobbies. And one thing that I always appreciated about him was he would appropriately talk to me like an adult and take a sincere interest in things that I was interested in, as well as teaching me new things. A couple of things that just come to memory, of course, the Marilyn Monroe Museum in the basement of your townhouse. He taught me not only to appreciate older films with Marilyn Monroe, but to actually enjoy them, which I say old films relative to my youthful age of 47, because it's not old to me. But he had a jacuzzi down there, and we would sit in the jacuzzi and watch his old movies, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. He also gave me my first adult camera, and grandkids, things worked a little bit differently back then. We actually had to put this film in and take a picture and get it developed. So I took an interest in photography because of John. With all that said, Talula has asked me only about 20 times to say something funny. So John taught me one of my favorite sayings as a kid that I would repeat to other adults that had beards, and it was, "See my beard, ain't it weird? Don't be scared, it's just my beard." A toast to John.
Yes, sir.
This is the godson's father.
Ain't this old Asian's bitch. My name is Don Cockrell, that was my son. I am the reason Talula and John got together. He doesn't agree with that, but it's the truth. I met Talula, and I was in the Navy in Jacksonville, Florida. I met a girl, Sarah Garrett, who it turns out had gone to college with Talula. Sarah was from Charleston, Talula was from Spartanburg, South Carolina. They were college roommates and best friends. I started dating Sarah in 71, and in February of 72 I got out of the Navy, and Sarah came from Jacksonville with me to Atlanta, where I was going to drop her off. She was looking for a teaching job, and she was going to live with Talula. And I dropped her off in February of 72. I went back to my home territory in D.C. to start practicing law. And then Talula and a third woman named Kathy and my girlfriend Sarah all came to D.C. in September of 72, all with the same laser focus on finding a husband.
Wait. Sarah said, I'm not going to D.C. just because I'm gone.
Well, so Sarah and I got married, and but anyway, and that's it. You would not have been in D.C. had not Sarah brought you and Kathy along to come up to D.C. So I am the reason they got together. John never forgave me. I love John. John, my wife calls me Googles because I read all the time on the internet. I never read the encyclopedia, but I know a lot of things about a lot of topics, but nothing like John. He was the original trivia king. And so he was a man of many interests, had a great sense of humor. And I was always grateful, and I know my late wife, Sarah, was always grateful that John and Talula had gotten together. They were the perfect couple. They were made for each other. So I'm very grateful to John for not only being my friend, but taking care of my friend Talula. And I know John is here in spirit. So John, here's to a good life.
Your side, ma'am.
Wow. Okay, now I'm nervous. I'm Natalie Silver. Some of y'all know me as the Gadget Gal. And I started doing IT support with seniors 2019, right before COVID. And at the time here, I worked with the management to create a little gift card that went in the welcome package of some of y'all's. And it said, you get a free hour with Gadget Gal if you move in. And only about 3 people actually got to take me up on that, and one of them was Talula. And I can still hear your voice on the other end of the phone saying, well, I don't know what we're going to do about my free hour. We hit it off like, I don't know, I have a lot of clients, but she's different, she's special, and then John right after. And so I got to know her first, and then John, and we would come have dinner, and I would just sit and listen. And my impression of John was, he was an old soul, like a Princeton grad, brilliant man in cutoffs and thick glasses. Is that not pretty close to what he was? Sense of humor that just never missed, always had something funny to say. And so this last year has been so hard to watch the change from, never missed a beat, never missed an opportunity to say something that made us all laugh and think too. And then, so it's been hard. But, I think as I've watched lots of people go at different paces, he did it his way. And we're all grateful that he didn't suffer very long, and he just stayed John as best he could until the end. And I miss him terribly. And I don't know if you know this, but Richard and I bought his car. So it's here, and I get it. I've driven it 3 times this week, and I just put on 70s music and think of him. And I'm riding down the road. So it's been a lot of Chicago and I've played Chicago and ELO and stuff he would have loved. And so Talula handed me this, and he forgot. So you want me to know? John has a sister still with us. She's in Florida, but she's not healthy enough to come. So she sent a note, and so Michelle may or may not know, they had an heirloom in the family that needed to get to the other part of the family that was still in D.C. So January, Richard and I loaded this 160-year-old antique rocker up and drove it up to D.C., Alexandria actually, Arlington, and delivered it to his first cousin. And when we got it, she was so excited. We get out of the car, she said, "I'm so excited, thank you for bringing Bill's chair. And I kept saying, "Who is Bill? Do we have the wrong house?" They knew him as Bill, and not even Bill, Little Bill. Little Bill. Are you sure we have the right person? There were 2 Bills. At the time he got the name, he was little. He outgrew everybody, and he was Little Bill. But we all knew him as John, and his name, if you see on the card that we made, says William John. So there's where it came from. But she sent a letter, and it says, this is going to send me over. I was very fortunate to have Bill as a brother for 75 years. When my husband and family moved back to Virginia, whenever there was a family event, be it happy or sad, he was always present and involved. When I was hospitalized, Bill would sit with my husband for hours at a time. When his niece gave birth to twins, he was an enthusiastic participant. There's a story there. And the hospitalized staff thought he was the father. That didn't surprise me either. I have a hard time when people call him my half-brother. He was my whole brother in every way and an important part of my life, and he will be sorely missed. So the man we all miss, I'd like to raise our glasses to the toast. The guy in the cutoffs, the brilliant photographer, the happy brother, and the one that made us all laugh, John.
Well, I can tell you that. I forgot. Toastmaster. Thank you. Yeah, what you're supposed to do. I think it's when his nieces were, his sister's granddaughters were born, twins. I think it was them. He was taking pictures in the window, and somebody came up and said, "You can't do that." And John kept clicking and said, I'm not smoking. And he got 2 more pictures there.
One of the youngest friends of John, Lisa, wants to say a couple sentences.
You're gonna thought it would be. So I remember John, whenever I used to go over to Newton's house, he would always find a way to compliment me. It was about my outfit or my hair, something like that. And it'd always be so nice. And I also remember when me and Newton were younger, that we used to dance, right, to something like Queen the King, pretty sure that song. And it was probably the worst dance now when I think about it. It was a horrible dance. And he acted like it was the best concert he'd ever seen. It was the best dance. And he acted like it was absolutely amazing. And I remember how he'd kind of be like the light of the party. So without him, it'd kind of be kind of bad, without his jokes and stuff. So he was a really nice, really amazing. And that's why that's why I loved him so much. Yeah, and he was loved by everyone in my family. My mom loved him, my dad loved him. My mom would talk about him all the time, right, Nika?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just an amazing person in the town. So, thank you.
She's a singer.
Yeah.
Anybody from the website, please?
You don't have to come if you want to stand. You do, but the rest of us should sit stand.
My name is Emily. I work here. They might not know that. So Talula insisted that I tell this story, but I also have two others that she did not approve, but I'm going to tell anyway. So the one that she told me I could tell, it's kind of sad a little bit, but I do think it was the first time that John ever fell in this building. I was still working in the dining room. So I, of course, run over. I'm like, are you okay? We bring a chair over. He gets up on his own, and he goes, I was just trying to get your attention. So now I'm going to tell you the two stories that she doesn't know about. When he was moved next door to Dogwood, Talula, I don't know, her hands were full or something. I was still here after dinner, and she asked me to wheel him over to Dogwood. So I had to be the bad guy because she didn't even follow. So the whole way over, he's like, I don't want to go there. What are you doing? Why are you taking me over there? And I'm like, you got to listen to your wife, And then he's like, well, you have a car, don't you? Just put me in it. She won't even know. And the last one that is actually my favorite, he came down to lunch one day, and usually they would go to eat together, right? They would even sit here with Lola sometimes because she wasn't allowed in the dining room, but he came down by himself one day. I'm pretty sure he was sitting with Ross. And he was sitting in the restaurant, which he never did. So I was like, hey, why are you here all alone? He said, well, I asked Lola to make me a sandwich, and she said no, so I left. That's all I got.
Now, you all talk about these wonderful things that God, but do any of you know that he likes to eat? I'm a resident here, and so the men went for breakfast, and we went out of this area to another area, and we went to Cartersville to, what was the place, Mary? Cracker Barrel. And so I really had not met John at that point, but he was with another car, and we went there. And I turned around in the restaurant, and John's sitting there eating steak for breakfast. And every time I've been around John around here, I always would see that he had a pretty full plate. So I think he learned to like to eat.
One of his favorite sayings was, he's trying to get a 75-pound hedge against our roses.
Lola wants to say.
Just the word.
This is from a friend of mine that lives in Tuscany, Italy now, that I will see in September. She wrote this, and I just like what she wrote. So there, Sue's going to read it.
Now, Lynn Mulstain is a friend, and she wrote this about John. He was not just a tall man, but an honorable and fun tall man. She says, I wish I could be there with you for his celebration, but I'm definitely there in spirit. That's what Lynn had to say. Now, what I would like to say is, I did not know John too well, mainly because the only time I could speak to him was when he was sitting down. Otherwise, he was a lovely man, and I agree with Lynn.
I'm probably Talula's oldest friend today because I know Talula from the 7th grade.
What year was that?
Several ago.
19. But John was a hit from the beginning for us. John wouldn't come to one of our high school reunions unless Fred was there. But the thing I remember with him the most is he did, like y'all know, take lots of pictures. At one time in my life, I tried to sell my jewelry. John was my photographer, took gorgeous pictures. He found a really good model. And that's as far as I'll say. Because Talula won't let me say the rest of that.
This is not to be as articulate as everyone else, not particularly funny, but I do remember John's wonderful, witty, clever sense of humor. One of my favorite stories about John was he was a paralegal at one point in time, and he was working with an attorney. He was sitting, there was a trial, he was sitting behind the attorney. The attorney was sitting there, and John would say, reach around the corner, tap him, and explain to him what he needed to say. So basically, John ran the trial, sitting behind the attorney. I thought that was a wonderful story.
I think the judge found it, why don't you let John just tell me?
Talula asked me to tell the story because I told her about it. I met John because I was fortunate enough to get the apartment just off the game room. And when I came out one day, he was sitting there and Lola introduced us. So I knew immediately he was going to be a really good friend. And a lot of times Talula would be out and around, so we would sit down to lunch together. And there's two things about that. One was I never could eat all of my meat. And like he said, John liked food. And he was always happy to have me share the plate with him. But the thing I wanted to tell about, we were talking one time and he was telling me about his family, some about his mother and different things. I said, well, John, I'm a little bit too young to be your mother, but I guess I could be your stepmother. I've never been one before. And I think we decided that that would work just fine as long as I wasn't the wicked stepmother.
John was my uncle, and a funny story about John, when my grandmother passed away, I was in my early 30s, and of course, grandparents are so special, and you hate to lose them because they're books that you can't read anymore. So I was having a pretty somber moment at her funeral, and it was the visitation moment, and I was walking over to her casket to take a last look. And John is standing there having a conversation with her. And I thought, I said, is she talking to you? And he said, yeah, but don't tell anybody. And of course, we began to laugh, and then he went on with his conversation, just like it was normal. Another time, Talula, as Watson said earlier, had a hard time getting John to travel. He didn't like it as much as she did. So we were going to do this river cruise, and she said, well, if you get your husband to come, I think I can get John to go, and we can all go together. Well, my husband is about 3 years older than John, and John just loved it because throughout the whole cruise, there's my husband standing with him, and when John would introduce me, because this is my favorite nephew. And my husband would be like, oh my God. Anyway, and John just got the biggest kick out of that because he could refer to him as his nephew. And then another time when we were traveling, Talula had a habit of tripping and falling, sometimes on vacation. And John would get so annoyed. And on this particular trip, we were headed across a restaurant, and they had a little step that was really hard to see. And Talula tripped over it and really injured her ankle pretty badly. So I was sitting there with her, and John is feeling a little fussy and frustrated. And I said, it's okay, it's okay. He said, yeah, it's okay. He says, she can be such a pain in the rear, but she's cute. And that's why I stay married to her. And I always got a kick out of that. Is every time she do something that would annoy me, go, but she's cute. Anyway, and so aside from his sense of humor, one thing that we had a lot of fun with many years ago, my daughter and I went up to visit during Easter weekend when they lived in Alexandria, Virginia. And John was still taking lots of pictures, and they had this cute little beagle dog at the time. And so he took some pictures of my daughter Parrish and the beagle. And you never knew, how those pictures were going to surface again. And so several months later, we get this framed picture in the mail, and it was a picture of my daughter holding the beagle. And there was a big caption at the bottom of it, "Beauty and the Beagle" from Uncle Tom.
That's cute.
You?
I just want to ask Talula one question. Do you think most people know the story about the pot-belly pig? Do you think so? It's a family story.
She's talking about the pot-bellied pig. You can see that's the court case he won, and you can see it when you go upstairs, the whole court case.
Oh, that's one more thing I want to say. I have a picture in my house in this bedroom, and my husband always refers to it as the Talula room, because when she and John would come to stay, that was the room they would stay in. So I have the picture of them with their pig and the beagle. And I used to get the biggest kick when we would go up and visit John and Talula when they had the pig. I went walking with him one day because he'd go outside to smoke and walk the pig. And people would come up and go, "Is that a pig?" And he goes, "No, it's a Doberman." And he goes, "Stupid people, is it a pig?" Anyway, so I just had to say that.
Tell them about the story about John going home taking his parents' case.
You want to say sorry?
When John went to court and presented the case.
It's up there.
I can't hear it.
It's the whole case is up there. I don't die after school.
You want mine, right?
This is the one that's it's kind of embarrassing, but she's okay with it.
I'm never like the first day. Hi, I'm Diana.
She works here.
Like the first day I met Mr. John. I'm one of the housekeepers here. And that day I introduced myself because I was new. And he said, "Oh, so what's your name?" "Diana." "Where are you from?" "I'm from Colombia, South America." "Have you ever been from Colombia?" "Yes. Just traffickers, kidnapping, cocaine." Sure. And Miss Lola was next to him like he almost elbowed him. "John!" And okay, I realized that he wasn't he was just, he had this mischievous sense of humor, right? And he didn't mean to hurt me or upset me. He was just cracking a joke. And I said, "Okay, don't worry, I'm used to it, that kind of comment, don't worry." So we're in peace. And since then I love people. And they can be resting in Jesus' arm right now.
Richard?
Yeah, I just have a funny story. But first I want to say you guys can do anything because that is the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. But when I was growing up, probably when I was a little too young to be drinking, we drank crappy beer because it was cheap. But it turns out John liked Pabst Blue Ribbon. The cheap beer.
Anybody else? Jim? Oh, Jackson.
No. keep me company, so I wasn't scared. I do as well as these young ladies did. I met Talula and Lola at the mailboxes when I first moved in, which would have been, coming up in May would have been 3 years ago. Soon after that, I was invited to dinner, eat dinner with Talula and John. John Guntner, the gentle giant, was an interesting conversationalist. He was current on politics and history. He would listen to you, and he was very funny. We had a special friendship, as he was quite tall, and I am definitely vertically challenged. He would always walk by and pat me on the head. When we ate at the Zinnia, and I would not come and eat lunch with him, he would come over and fuss at me, so why wouldn't I sit with him? And I always told him I was afraid of his wife. Oh, and back to the eating the steak and all that, don't forget the onion rings. He had written 2 books that I found very interesting and insightful. One was about the plight of the Vietnam War veterans when they returned home and the horror they faced with a very unfriendly homecoming. Having a brother who served in Vietnam, I knew where he was coming from. The other one was about the sleeper cells activities after 9/11. I was sure they existed, but had never really learned anything about them. I often offered to proofread his next book. I am afraid I insulted him. I think he thought I wanted to edit it, but he always said no one wanted to read anything he might write. The last time I saw John was when he had moved to Dogwood into the assisted living. And Talula needed to get some time to get a shower and run some errands, and I could tell he was unsure and concerned about the new situation. I had some crossword puzzles with me, and we talked about the answers and how when you read a clue, it often is asking for something that is in a whole different direction than what you were thinking. We had a really, good conversation, and I'm going to miss the gentle giant.
Hi. You're going to hear a story again from breakfast. I first met John at a different men's club breakfast. I was sitting, John was on my right, Wayne was on my left, and these 2 guys just I'm always very shy. So I didn't say too much. But I did have on a sweatshirt from my alma mater college I went to. And the next time I see John, we're over here in Zinnia, I come down for lunch, and I have the same sweatshirt on. And he says, come on, sit down. You didn't talk the last time. Time for you and I to talk. And that started because I have a fondness for baseball and all sports. I have more t-shirts and sweatshirts than they. And every time I'd wear one down to lunch and so forth, John was there. Jack, come on over, let's have a talk. And of course, it would just start the conversation. So, Talula has a college gathering, wants to go to down to a Braves game. And one time she asked me, would you want to go to a Braves game with us? I said, sure, anytime.
Sorry you said that.
I was sorry I said didn't know when. And it was the season, this was during the winter. So it was the season where they had been on strike and they were coming to play, but everything was a week or 2 behind schedule. Anyway, the first time we get to go to a game is April the 8th, down at the ballpark here. And coldest night of the winter. The wind chill factor was in the high 30s. And of course the stadium is windy and everything. And we looked like we were sitting in Buffalo at a football game during the winter, because we had couldn't see our faces, we were so comfortable. And it was Talula meeting some people from the university in Washington. And John and I, we got our seat. We just, and on the way out, he says, you want to go to another game? I said, sure, love to. He says, you and I are picking out the dates.
Anybody else wants to say something?
So again, I want to thank you all for coming, for your love for John, and your support for me and him. And I hope you'll all meet at least one person that you didn't know before. And since there's only 6 degrees of separation, you might find somebody that you have a connection with. So for instance, for everybody that has either lived or is from South Carolina, please hold up your hand.
I live there.
Okay, that counts. So, and we have other people who live here that aren't here now. And I was hoping Dale was here, but she wasn't here. Oh, you are here. I met Dale, and we didn't talk 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, before we found out a connection. How far is Shelby, North Carolina from the South Carolina line? How much? 20 miles. 20 miles. Well, that's about, was Gagnon the first one?
20 miles.
So Don's current wife is from my hometown, but we didn't know each other. She's from my hometown. But anyway, I asked her where she was from, and she said, Shelby. No, she said, a little town in North Carolina you've never heard of. And I said, what's the name of it? And she said, Shelby. I said, oh, my aunt lived at, lived at 513 Gold Street. She said, what was her name? And when I told her name, she said, she and I were nurses together when I first became a nurse, and it was just the 2 of us. And she said, and she taught me so much. So
you would come and stay with her for a long time. You guys take it.
I will tell what she did if you're not careful. Okay, all right. Would you please look in front of you? Somebody has a pig sticker.
Nobody has it.
It's supposed to be Susan. Okay, well, you come sit here right quick. You come sit up here. Yeah, you sit. Come sit here. Pig sticker. Just sit right here. Okay, on the back side, did somebody find a sticker on somebody's chair? Pat them on this. No, look, it's on the back of, no, it's on the back of the chair. The person behind you has to see it. Now what? Is it yours? A pig? Is that the pig? Okay, Nipsey and Tom, come here. Okay, so and you have to pull it out and show what it is. Don't you take it from her? So Tamara told me we should give away a door prize. So I just had the one upper to give 2. And these belong to John. Pull it out. He had 3 of these, so I have one, you have one, and you have one. when we go upstairs for refreshments, I hope you'll hear more stories, and I hope you all will meet different people. Don't expect green vegetables or anything. This is only going to be things that John will eat or drink.
All right.
It's his party. Some of you like some of the same.
And hamburgers.
If I could ask the people that live here in Holbrook, if y'all could go take that elevator, and I'll take these people to this elevator. Wait, hold on just a minute. Hold on just a minute. Wait, not yet, not yet.
I came to know John and Talula best as restaurant partners. A group of us used to eat together. John always sat at the head, or it may have been the foot of the table. I don't think he cared. But I sat near him, and although I'm hard of hearing, John was nearby and I could listen to him. And Talula, you're right. He liked to tell stories, and I like to listen. I remember John best as a friendly competitor. It all started one day. I was keeping the house dog, Daisy, at that time, and I took her down to the courtyard. And John was down there, sitting on a bench with a very, very pretty blonde. When I came out and walked over, the blonde stood up and gave me a hug and a kiss. And John looked over and said, well, that beats all. You come down with me, and as soon as Don shows up, you're over there, and now you're sitting down in his lap. Maybe I ought to mention for Talula's sake, that blonde has 4 legs, and she had a cute blonde hair before she fell into the hands of an over-eager groomer. Her name's Lola. After that, John and I often kidded each other about who was getting the most affection from Lola. He called me a dog whisperer. He said it just wasn't fair. When John was ill, the first time I went to see him, I walked in the room and I said hello to John. He didn't say hello back. There was a long silence, and he looked at me and he said, when am I going to get my dog back? I want to tell you about a dream I had. It was February 23rd. I remember it clearly. John came to visit me. And if you notice the dates, that was a month or more after he had passed. He came to visit me at a dream, and we went fishing, of all things. John knew about a fishing hole up in Murray County, up at the foot of Fort Mountain, near the Tennessee line. I don't know how he knew about it. I'd lived there for 19 years, and the only fishing I knew was trout fishing. But John said he had some worms and a rod and reel, and he wanted to go fishing. So we rode up there together. And you know, the landscape from here to there was nothing like it is in real life, in my dream. It was desolate. There were unpainted buildings, vacant, most of them falling down. Behind them, there were bare fields lying fallow, not even weeds growing. It'd been years since the plow had touched them. But you know, when we came to where John was going fishing, I was following him at that point. I saw his truck parked, and he was driving a pickup of all things. And he parked in front of an old abandoned store. And I walked around the building, and I saw a field of green corn, about knee-high, trembling in the breeze. As far as I could see, the rows of corn out in all that desolate country. There were 2 boys there, and I asked them if they saw a big guy come through, and they said, yeah, come through here with a rod and reel. And I said, well, where did he go? He went that way. He went, where? Oh, he went that way. Oh, okay, you know how far he went? Probably just down by the creek. So I went down between the rows of corn and it was a long walk that way. I came to some woods. I walked a good bit farther. And finally I came to another abandoned building, and when I walked around the corner, there was John. There was a flowing stream, and just as I saw John, he caught a fish. And I walked over to see what he had caught. Beautiful fish. Wasn't that big. It was about like this. But I said, John, that's a nice looking fish, but you know, that's a pike. And there aren't any pikes in North Georgia streams. He said, that one was. It's right here. Well, John and I visited. A game warden showed up, and he did the usual thing. Hi, boys, you having any luck? Got a license. John said, sure, reached in his pocket, showed it. He was okay. The guy looked at me and said, and how about your license? I said, hey, I didn't come to fish. I'm just here visiting with my friend. He looked kind of skeptical and looked around to see if I'd hidden anything. And he left. John and I continued to visit, and he kept catching fish. It was a beautiful day, clouds in the sky, breeze, there in the woods in the shade. We had a good visit together. The game warden showed back up. He didn't trust me. He thought I'd probably hidden the rod and reel when I was fishing, but he didn't catch me. And John and I enjoyed the afternoon together. And then I woke up. And you know, most dreams just vanish like a mist as soon as you wake up. And I haven't given you all the details of this dream, but I remembered it from beginning to the end. And I had the most pleasant feeling when I woke up. It was almost as if I'd had a chance to say goodbye to John. And that was a welcome experience. And by the way, that blonde still comes to visit me. And every time she comes in, I remember my competition with John. And you know, we found out together, she has plenty of loving to go around, a lot of attention for everybody, especially she had for John and for me. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know where to start, so I guess I should go up here, right? Must be pretty. Oh, yeah.
I'm filming it. I'm filming it so we can add it together.
You're the one that said that. We came early to do it, and she said, I got something else to do.
So I think we'll have to get one of the trolleys from downstairs, because I think we can probably gather up a little space. After people are through looking at it.